very much. All right. Let the games begin. Dragon meditation.
Okay.
So this is a
Let me
very
get into my important,
yeah.
you know, like
Well, yeah. You need to get into dragon meditation posture.
That's
yeah.
right.
Variation on the burning meditation,
Correct.
and something we can use in a more pointed way to enhance our seeing.
Sure. As well as other things, right? So, but I mean, we'll go through the seeing part right now.
Right. Yeah. Definitely. Right.
But, you know,
right.
you can sort of, once you get the idea, then you can pretty much, extrapolate the information and sort of, you know, how would I use this for healing, or how would I use this for this, or this, or this, you know?
Right.
So it's a little bit more pointed than just the generic burning.
Right. And we'll go into those applications later.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. But for now, I guess, just, I mean, give us like a broad overview of it, you know, because it's not, if people have practiced the burning meditation, then they'll be familiar with,
Yeah. They'll have that platform already developed, right? So, and again, it's the same, except that this time, instead of being on a cliff above a beach, you're going to be right on the beach.
Mm.
So, and again, you can either, you know, use the chair that you're sitting in, or however you're sitting, right? I mean, if you are sitting, I mean, normally with any of these burnings, right, we're sort of straight-legged, feet flat on the floor, traditionally, hands palm down and not touching, you know, no configuration there. So we want to have, you know, our energy configuration sort of opened up the way that we would be more or less if we were standing, right? So back is straight, obviously, neck is straight. And so, you know, when we do that, you can, it's sort of like, again, everything, if we look at all these things, you know, what are the bridges that sort of link, you know, what we do meditatively, or, you know, where we go to anchor it back to this place, right? So like, not trying to eliminate the chair that we're sitting on, you know, that's the part that our body is connected to in the physical realm here, right? So by me bringing a mental representation of that to the place where I'm doing the burning or whatever type of meditation, it makes that connection, it makes that bridge, you know, more possible, let's say. You know, it's a, you know, like a metallurgy, it's a lyre, right? Something that connects to things that don't normally go together. So it's, you know, it's something in between, a transitional point where it's like, okay, you know, what's the common denominator between this mental realm that I've constructed in my mind and the physical realm where I'm sitting in this room? And, you know, for lack of something better, it could be this chair that I'm actually connected to on the floor in that room. And now I'm imagining that I have that same chair and I'm sitting in that same chair in my, you know, built out place on the beach. So that connection point actually makes the transference of energy much more, it's easier for the mind to sort of, you know, have that connecting point there for some reason and transfer what we do in that mental realm and have that coming back to our physical bodies. So it doesn't sound like that would really be needed. Like if I think about it too long, I'm going, you know, I'm not sure why would that actually work better than, you know, just doing the meditation, imagining myself someplace and, you know, hoping that I get some information back. But here's the thing, you know, a lot of times I think people that are doing meditation, they're not actually thinking that they're going to get some physical effect. And that's the trick, right? It's like they're doing something, they're meditating and they're mentally trying to feel better or, you know, eliminate, you know, mental aberrations in their mind or, you know, burn off, even in our case, you know, burn off stress and mental fatigue, right? But it's all in that mental realm. It's not really, we're not really expecting it to transfer much, if any, to the physical. You know, I might feel better physically when I leave, but I'm not really thinking I'm going to change anything in myself on a physical level. But for us, you know, we expect that that's going to change something for us, and the physical as well. Like when we do healing, we're not just, it's not anesthesia. We're not just taking the pain away. We're correcting the problem, right? So the idea is if I have a bum knee and there's some damage there, it's not just that it feels better and I can use it more. It's actually because it's not anesthesia, right? It's not, that's not what we're doing. We're actually, holding that image of our knee in perfection, because at some point, hopefully, some point, maybe earlier in life or whatever, your knee was 100% and you could do whatever you did before you injured it without pain, perfect construction, all of that. That's what I'm remembering, right? Because there is no past, no future. It's just this moment. And if I can pull that in where I'm, sort of actualizing that at that moment, it gives my subconscious, my mental body a way, and my energetic body a way to, a model for that perfect knee, right? So, and somehow, having a connection to the physical, whether it be that energetic construct of a chair that I'm actually physically sitting in, gives that a bit of a bridge there for that to happen. So it's like, oh, okay. Like when we were discussing the other day, the daytime exercises for lucid dreaming and the nighttime exercises for lucid dreaming, and how we flip those back and forth enough times where we get, we mix up the mind and the body so much that, we're not sure at the end of that exercise, are we sitting in a chair and imagining we're standing at the railing, or are we at the railing imagining that we're sitting in the chair? You have to really think for a second, well, which one am I in now? So, and that's that same transference, right? And so again, it helps facilitate the end result of what we're looking for. Well, with the, being in a chair, having some kind of physical attribute that you're actually transferring into the mental picture, it actually helps facilitate that transference of energy from one place to another, from the mental realm into the physical realm. So it's just another one of those little nuances that I think is important, especially with healing.
Yeah.
So, so the Dragon Meditation. So I'm on the beach instead of on a cliff above the beach.
Now, is there a reason for that other than to make it different than the burning meditation?
Yeah, it's, I've never really gotten a good answer about that. It's because the burning meditation is sort of like, at least in that school, it was, it's like the foundational practice. Like if you didn't do that, you couldn't do any of the other ones, right? That was sort of the jumping off point for a lot of reasons, right? But that's sort of the foundational practice as far as meditation goes, and the only one that was really required to do. Everything else was sort of optional, and so you always sort of started out in that place, and then from there you would, if you were doing burning, you would do burning, and maybe you do shorter burning and then go into some other meditation after that, or you'd go right from there into something else. In this case, when we did the Dragon Meditation, for some reason it was, the location was different than that. It wasn't just this seat on a cliff, above the beach. It was actually on the beach, and there are several other meditations that we do that are like that. And even though it sounds pretty much the same, and it is pretty much the same, there are slight differences in where you're starting from, and I'm not really sure of the reason. I mean, I could speculate about it, but it would be pure speculation on my part. I never got a clear answer as to why that was. So we'll leave it at that. Try it and see. So.
And is it a good idea to be going to the same beach?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I try to keep that all the same, and that was always pretty much the same. It was just where you actually in that imaginal realm where you started. Depending on the meditation that you were doing, you would start from a different location within that confines, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think that each practice helped build that area out to be more detailed and more real for you. So it was just sort of hitting it from different angles again to build out the actuality of it over time.
Yeah, and solidifying the idea of having just like, I guess, a few places in your practice where you're imagining, these jumping off points or these starting points of, location-wise.
Yeah.
Or kind of instilling that as a habit instead of just like, you know, you're doing the same burning every time, but you're kind of going wherever. You're going to all sorts of different places or whatever. It's like building out those things that will that will facilitate the purpose of the meditation being the focal point instead of all the periphery.
Yeah, because there's less distraction.
Right.
And, you know, think about it from a purely physical standpoint too, right? It's like, you know, we all try to, you know, the ideal is to have a room or a place where you can have your things set up, or, you know, that nobody else goes or uses, and it's really allocated just for the work that you're doing, right? Much like an office would be. You know, it's like your kids don't go in your office, or, you know, they wander in and out, but I mean, it's like they're not, you know, you're not putting them in there to have a playroom. You know, so, you know, that's a nice idea, to have, you know, a set room set aside. Not critical to have that. You know, you could just cordon off an area of your, you know, you live in a studio, well, you know, you cordon off a section or a corner that feels good to you, and you make it so that that's where you do your work, and it becomes comfortable for that. Like you start to move toward that corner, you're already facilitating the idea that you're moving into a different state, right? Just like using specific incense for specific meditations or practices, right? As soon as you smell that, your mind, your memory goes right to, you know, oh, okay, I smell that, I'm immediately moving into that state of mind where I normally go with that. And, you know, that's that consistency. And the same thing with, you know, building out these imaginal realms, and basically the same one in, you know, doesn't have to be more elaborate, but let's say it takes, because you've put so much effort into it, it becomes, you know, more real, much like the difference between a dream and a lucid dream. You know, it becomes surreal, right? It's like everything's more saturated in color and texture, and you have more sensory, you know, more of the senses are online when you're in that realm. So it's like, it's not just that I'm on the beach and I can hear the waves, you know, especially if I have a wave track in the background, right? But, you know, I smell the salt air. You know, I feel probably on some of the splashes, I feel a bit of spray from the ocean, you know, and that's not something you're contriving to do. It just happens spontaneously. It's your senses are starting to, you know, really acclimate to that territory. You're feeling more and more comfortable there. So of course, anything you do there in that, you know, more blown up sense of reality is going to have more of a transference for you back into this physical reality, right? So I think that that's one of the reasons, if I was going to speculate, which I said I wouldn't, but, you know, basically it's to build that territory out in much more detail, not making it more elaborate, just sort of really saturating it with the senses and feeling like you are in a place that was built for doing this work. And you're more comfortable being there. You're not distracted by it. It's just like, wow, every time you go there and do some work there, it just becomes, you know, you feel the sand on your feet. You know, it's like where you didn't before. And it's like, oh, well, that's interesting. I didn't really try to do. I didn't go in with the idea, oh, I'm going to try to feel the sand on my feet. You know, it's like it just happened. It's a spontaneous arising of those senses and, you know, that tactile sense. So, you know, that's when you know you're really, you know, that's another signpost. I mean, you don't have to be infatuated with the phenomena, but it's a signpost that you're really, you know, you're starting to get saturated with this, you know, with these ideas, and it's having much more effect on you, you know, when you're doing it there, and having much more transference back to you physically and mentally. So anyway, back to the dragon. So you gotta reel me in, man. Gotta reel me in. Okay, he's going out into deep waters here.
It's fantastic because I think, you know, having all these little details spread out, but these nuances coming out in different places is, I mean, for me, it's perfect. So I think, you know, it's good. It's good.
All right. So, so I'm on the beach and I'm in my chair. I go through my relaxation again. I mean, if you're using a candle or, you know, that kind of focal point, then you can bring the candle as well. I mean, I had, you know, one person said that they even brought the strip of floor that, you know, between their chair and the candle, you know, they brought that, and that was on the beach as well. So it's like, yeah, they really were combining the two together. And so that's perfectly fine, right? And of course, it's a magic candle, right? So it never really, the wind doesn't blow it out, or the spray doesn't, wash it out or anything like that. And I'm there, and I go through my relaxation, just like we do with the burning, or just like we do with anything, really. You can do the longer version, the shorter version, it doesn't matter, as long as you can get as deep a relaxation as possible. And again, especially for things like this, it's really important that you get, again, the bridge for any meditation to come back physically is going to be, how good is your relaxation? And, that's going to dictate how much of that transference comes back, right? So I'm there, and once I'm done relaxing, I look out to the horizon on the ocean. So I'm facing that direction. I look out to the horizon, and in my mind, I'm calling out to a dragon. However that comes to you, it doesn't really matter. No preconceived ideas at this point, just however that would be to you. You may actually verbally say it in that imaginal realm, or you may just think it, intensely in a direction toward the horizon. And then as you're watching, you'll see a dot appear on the horizon and moving toward you. It's like we have plenty of CGI now that we can imagine what that looks like if a dragon were coming in over you or whatever. And again, you might have a preconceived idea, but if you can, I would suggest just letting it appear as it would to you. Don't just call it and see what comes in, right? And so, what color is it? What is it shaped like? How big is it? All of those things, right? So, and if you do that, you'd be surprised at what shows up. Usually, people are like, "Wow, I had no idea that it would look like that," or whatever. It's a fascinating phenomena, actually. So you call this in, and it'll come, and it will land in front of you, and whatever size. And you'll tell it what you want. I called you here to help me, with my seeing, and so, and to, open up the chakras, open up any channels that need to be opened in order to facilitate that, make it easier for me and make me more competent at it. However you want to phrase it, something like that. You know what you really want, so just ask. And, there's no rote protocol for doing that, right? It's just generally, like, if you're a respectful person, you're going to be respectful. If you're sort of a flip person, you're going to be flip. It's like, there's no pat way to do it. It's not like, oh, you're going to meet the queen, you do this, and then you bow this way, and then you move sideways, and you bow like this, and you say these words, and then you go, oh, no, it's not like that. It's like, it's you. So how you interact in this world, as long as it's in a way that you want to, you'll interact with that in that world as well. Make it as common for you as possible, as comfortable for you as possible. Don't make it artificial that it's going to be awkward. That's really important, because you're going to waste energy doing that. It's not you. It's not going to come across the right way. So be yourself and ask the way that you would want to be asked. If somebody was asking you for something, ask in that way. That's probably a better guideline for that. And so I'm going to ask, to help me open up, the third eye, open, the chakras that are used for seeing, and the channels, and facilitate that flow to help me feel and understand, what it is when I'm doing that, and how I can utilize that ability better. And that's it. And usually what will happen at that point, the dragon will, it can do a couple of different things, and usually this is the sequence for myself. It will, it'll shrink down, it'll become very small, and then it'll fly, and it'll move to my third eye. And so when it moves to that place, and it blows fire through, not just on the surface, but on the surface and through my third eye and out the back. And just like the burning meditation, but in a very localized spot, right? So it's like, and as it does that, it's like, burning out the black, right? So it's opening that channel, opening that area. And then it'll fly around and do it from the back side out the front. And then, you know, and it may do that with several of the chakras, right? And so it could do it with the throat, obviously, would be a good idea. Heart, you know, different places along the chakra. It may do it in an area like, don't overthink it, right? Don't say, oh, you're too low, you're too high, whatever. It's like, it knows what it's doing. So, you know, you don't have to correct it. Once you put it on, once you say go, it's doing its thing. It'll go and, you know, blow fire through. And usually that's the sequence. It blows through the other direction, and goes through that on the exterior, right? And then it'll shrink down even more, almost to a, you know, a very, very small level. And as I breathe in, it'll fly inside me. Usually, again, for me, it goes through my nose and, you know, gets inside as if my body were an empty vessel, empty shell. And so it'll go through and do the same thing with the chakras in that way, right? So, and in this case, you're going to, when it moves inside you, you're going to see through its eyes. So instead of you watching it from the outside doing this, and the fire moving or whatever, it's like you're seeing through its eyes. So now you're taking that perspective of being the dragon. And it goes in and it sees the chakras, you know, those areas of the body from the inside, and it'll, from the inside point, will blow out or blow back or whatever, those types of things. And, you know, any other things like organs, like if it's near the heart and it sees that the heart is, you know, maybe an area of the heart is, it'll look black, like the black sludge of stress and mental fatigue, right? So it'll blow fire on that. Maybe sometimes it'll even chew that area. And as it does and blows fire on that, not only does the black go away, but it's replaced by like a fresh pink color. You know, that's different than the burning, right? Because normally it would be gold color, right? So in this case, it would be a pink color. And so, and it'll go through and it'll do that for as long as it needs to. Right, as long as you're not super fatigued and you know, you don't want to exhaust yourself, but it'll go and do that for as long as it needs to and clean all that up, and then it'll come out. And usually when it comes out and it grows again, if it's a bigger one, right, it'll grow, and then it'll, like the burning meditation, it will burn all of you. So it'll blow fire over your whole body. Right, so, you know, and that's when you're breathing in the yellow and pushing out the black, and then it's burning all of that black off for you with a red flame in this case, right? The other flames, it doesn't really have to be red when it starts out, right? So, but in this case, you know, it's like a general burning at that point. Okay, so, and in that case, I always think of it as like, okay, it's done all this individual work, now it's going to coordinate everything together, you know, so it's like harmonizing everything, and that's the idea. So, and then when it's done, it literally will just, you know, it'll sort of take off, and you'll thank it, and it just flies back over the horizon, and just know that there's no lamenting about that. Like, every time you need it, it's going to come. You know, and you'll build up this relationship with this aspect, and it'll help you, you know, in doing that, whether it's, again, healing, or in this case, opening the third eye and coordinating the chakras for seeing ability. So, and that's it. And then obviously when you come out, I mean, you can wait and do something later, or you can immediately go into a gazing practice and see how it's changed you, you know, so, and that's it really. There's not much else to it, you know, so. It's just a variation on the burning, basically, just a little bit more targeted. Again, there's other applications for it, but in the seeing realm, that's the way I would utilize the dragon meditation.
Yeah. What's your stance on like how you think about the dragon that's like there? You know, like, do you think of it as being like an actual like spirit of a dragon, or just something that you're conjuring up to facilitate the effect that you're looking for? Or, I mean, how, like, I mean, maybe that's just individual, but like, was there something in the way that that was taught to you originally that speaks to the nature of the experience that you're having?
Part of it might be just the, you know, the cultural context of it, right? I mean, in the East, the dragon, it represents heaven energy. So, or the, you know, the energetic part of nature, right? So that sovereign part of nature, as opposed to the earthy part of nature, which is more represented by the tiger. So more, you know, forceful, great cat predator type of thing. It's like that's a lot of times you'll see these classical paintings with a tiger kind of climbing up a mountain and getting close to the top, and a dragon sort of circling around above the mountain, right? So the dragon or the tiger is sort of the sovereign of the earth, or the earth principle, and the dragon is more of that heaven energetic principle. Sometimes yin and yang, right? So those aspects. So it's more of that movement of energy, the dragon energy. And again, if we think of it from that context, it's like they're both perfection of that energy, of that, like the tiger being the perfection of the yin energy, and the dragon being the perfection of the yang energy, or the moving principles. So, and I think that that's it. When we're thinking about the dragon as being that, and taking that form, which gives us that idea, that correspondence for that, it's more that if, what keeps people, what would be one, at least, thing that would keep people from seeing, would be that there's a little bit too much stagnation of your energy in those centers, and the coordinating aspects of them. So, using that more pointedly, the burning meditation, so to speak, more pointedly, it will sort of release that and get that flowing again.
Using that yang energy, that moving energy to release. Yeah.
To release the stagnation there, unclog the pipes basically, and get things moving again.
Right.
So, so I'm thinking that's pretty much what it is.
Is it kind of like when you're using specific prayers, let's say, that have been used for millennia by millions or thousands of people or whatever, you're tapping into a reservoir of energy that's been used in a specific way, and in using, in tapping that specific resource, it's like you're adding more energy than just making something up, your own visualization or whatever.
Absolutely. Because again, so many over the millennia have used that representation to do this, or other things like it, right?
So there's
it comes from that reservoir of dragon energy.
So
they're like,
there's an archetype of this, let's say in the astral or whatever, that's charged and full of energy and has been used in a specific way. And when you do this meditation, it's like you're connecting with that and all the people that have done it this way before. And
right.
Yeah. So it's like you don't have to work as hard to get the effect that you're looking for, because you're,
you still have to work, but the idea is that, you're tapping a resource that's, that has had a lot put into it over a very long period of time. If you were using a purple grasshopper, probably not the same. It might work. Guess. It might work, but it's probably not going to have the same resources available to it to help generate enough to get through it. It's not just a mental construct in that way. All of these things have a sympathetic resonance, right? And we're connecting with that, with a group of people, right? It's like, imagine, a reservoir of, 1 billion people, having that same idea and the same correspondences. I mean, when you tap into that sympathy, there's a pretty, that's a pretty strong resonance. It'd be like people, praying to, Jesus Christ, or Archangel Michael, or whatever, right? Any, deity. It's like depending on how many people have, sort of built up a reservoir of energy, of sending energy out to that,
It's kind of like neural pathways.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, doing it to the flying spaghetti monster is probably not going to bring you, all that much return. There's not going to be a lot of momentum there, right? So it's, we're just taking advantage of those archetypes. We're taking advantage of that, reservoirs of energy to tap into. It will help you. That's what it was designed for. And that's why we do that.
Right, because we remembering that the people that, have developed these practices were very practical and super conscientious of their time and how they're using it and what effect they're getting from it.
Yeah, and without naming it, I mean, or without using the same name that we've given it, basically think about them, let's say, 15 millennia ago, 15,000 years ago, of starting something that they, you know, as a group in a temple someplace, and, you know, coordinating this, you know, these ideas of correspondences for this dragon, you know, archetype, and then, you know, over the millennia, you know, so many people utilizing it, and not just the monks too, right? It's like the people, and then, you know, as it broke into the West, even more people, and then, you know, and so there's huge reservoir of energy, potential energy there, right? So like tapping into that, you know, you're going to have a lot more flow and utilizing it. It's not like they're lining up and you're going through all of them, but it's sort of like tapping into a mastermind that's been built for millennia. You're going to have access to a lot more. And I think that that's one of the reasons too, that, you know, much like a mastermind, we don't always know, you know, how, wow, I've been trying to think about this problem for a really long time, haven't gotten anywhere, and I hook up with these people that are all trying to do the same thing, and now I've got, you know, one time, and I've got this brilliant idea that came out of nowhere. Well, it didn't come out of nowhere, it came out of the combination of people, you know, putting those patterns together and asking the right questions, and, you know, building that force together, and then, you know, you're tapping onto it and drawing the answer for your question. You know, and it's the same thing like that, but just multiply it by billions of people.
Right.
That's pretty strong.
It's not just you in there.
It's not just you in there, right? And so, and I think that that's where a lot of times, you know, that we're not always sure why a dragon will show up in that context, you know, or why it will show up that particular form,
yeah.
Right? It's like, you just, it's so fascinating to me, really. You know, it's like, more fascinating than trying to say, oh, okay, the dragon's going to look like, you know, the, you know, what was the one in Harry Potter, the, you know, the horntail, whatever it was, right? And it was like a pretty nasty piece of work, right? So, you know, it doesn't have to be that way, or some, you know, fairy tale one out of, you know, St. George and the Dragon, or, you know, whatever idea it would be for you. You know, you don't have to you don't have to visualize it specifically for that, right? It's like, I find it more fascinating just to call out and see what comes. You know, what is the form that's going to show up? It's truly a fascinating thing, you know. It's like, wow, you know, when you do that, it's like, and sometimes they'll change depending on the purpose that you're calling them for. Like the dragon that I have to help me do this is not the same form of dragon that comes when I'm asking it to do healing work for myself, and it's not the same one that comes if I ask it to do healing work for somebody else. They're different, and those will be consistent with what I'm asking for. I mean, that one that I ask when I ask for help with healing for someone else always comes in the same form. Funny, right? I mean, it really is almost, you know, in a way, sort of independent of your thought process. Especially when you first ask and it comes, you know, and it comes differently than the one before it. It's very odd and fascinating to think about. And how did you, you know, how'd you come up with that? You know, and they can take on some pretty unique characteristics too. So, I mean, and that's just, you know, your own idiosyncratic kind of rapport with that, you know, idea in your head. And as you build out the correspondences and the, you know, of, you know, what is dragon to you? You know, it can be everything from chaos, right? And, you know, completely erratic, you know, harmful energy, to the heaven, perfectly balanced heaven energy, right? And everything in between. So it's really just depending on what you need it for, it will change its configuration to that. It's just fascinating. It really is. So, and one of the, one of the more fun aspects of this, even though we're doing it for a practical purpose, it really is, it's on its own, it's very fascinating.
Yeah.
So, and the results that you get are incredible. Yeah. So.
Cool.
Yeah. You're ready to try it, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I have we'll talk about, I mean, because it's one of those things where we're going to come back to it, because there's other applications, and so there'll be more things to talk about that and spiral deeper on the dragon stuff, because it's...
Especially in the healing realm.
Yeah.
Physical healing. Mm-hmm. You know, this dragon is one of the key components of doing that really well. So,
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome.
Okay.
Thanks.
No problem.